I will try to make this presentation as informative and as interesting as possible. The topic for today is National Biodiversity Authority, and as secretary of this organization, I am pleased to share my thoughts to all the participants who are attending this webinar. All details pertaining to biodiversity governance, biodiversity related laws, biodiversity conservation projects are all available in the official website of the National Biodiversity Authority, which is there on your screen, that is nbaindia.org. Similarly, all biodiversity related developments and issues globally that is happening are available in the website of the Convention on Biological Diversity, that is cbd.in. So I have planned this presentation like this. I would be briefing you about the genesis of the establishment of National Biodiversity Authority, the international efforts to streamline biodiversity governance, and also I'll be briefing you about the NBA's institutional structure, the functions of National Biodiversity Authority, the concept of access and benefit sharing mechanism, and how corporate India and the research sector can help rural India. I would also brief you about the achievements of NBA till date and the challenges and way forward. Coming to the genesis of NBA, the National Biodiversity Authority is a statutory body functioning under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It was established on 1st October 2003. That is, next week we have our foundation day. So this is an organization which is established to implement a statute, provisions of the Biological Diversity Act, which was enacted by the Government of India in 2002 as part of its commitment to the Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992. As you know, in 1992, 116 countries came forward and signed the text of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and that happens to be the International Day for Biological Diversity as well. That is 22nd May 1992. In fact, 19th century had witnessed a lot of changes across the world, particularly due to the increased population, and also that had put a lot of pressure on our natural resources, and coupled with the advances in science and technology that had its own toll on the habitats and forest ecosystems that resulted in changes in global hydraulic patterns, climate change, global warming, El Nino, and so on. That had in fact indirectly or directly paved way for extinction of several valuable species. So in order to conserve our valuable and precious biodiversity, the world came together and the Convention on Biological Diversity Pact was signed in 1992. Today, there are 196 countries which are parties to this convention, and National Biodiversity Authority happens to be the national body which caters to biodiversity conservation and biodiversity governance so far as India is concerned. Coming to the institutional structure, we have a three-tier mechanism in India to govern our biodiversity. There are three objectives to the Act, that is the Biological Diversity Act. One is the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable utilization of the biological resources, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits that accrue from the biological resources. Now, in order to govern or manage the provisions of the Act, the Biological Diversity Act has set up three institutions at three different layers. One at the national level, that is the National Biodiversity Authority, and each state has a state biodiversity board, and each union territory has a union territory biodiversity council. And at the local body, we have the biodiversity management committees. As on date, there are about 265,000 biodiversity management committees that are functioning in our country at different local body levels. Coming to the composition of the NBA, the National Biodiversity Authority comprises of the chairman, NBA, along with 15 members, out of which 10 members are drawn from different line ministries. They are ex officio members of the NBA, drawn from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Ministry of Environment and Forest, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperation, Ministry of Biotechnology, the Ayush Ministry, the CSIR, the Department of Ocean Technology, Department of Science and Technology, and so on. Apart from these 10 ex officio members. We also have 5 expert members who have expertise in different aspects of biodiversity. Together with these 15 members and chairman, this constitutes the National Biodiversity Authority. The chairman of National Biodiversity Authority happens to be the CEO of the organization, and he presides over the authority meetings. The chairman is a person who has a vast experience in matters concerned to biodiversity. We are fortunate to have chairmen who had expertise in the past from the microbiology department, from the agriculture sector, from the genetic sector, from the wildlife sector, and so on. So the chairman actually takes the lead role in all the authority meetings and gives the policy direction so far as the NBA is concerned. At the secretariat level, there is an NBA secretariat that caters to the day-to-day functions of the authority and is headed by the secretary NBA, who is a serving officer. We have already discussed about the Biological Diversity Act in detail during the last 2 webinars. So as you know, chapters 3, 4, 5, and 7 of the Act pertains to the National Biodiversity Authority, its constitution, functions, and powers. The NBA is a corporate body with the perpetual succession and is presently functioning at Chennai. NBA can constitute committees to assist its activities. NBA also has the powers to regulate all activities envisaged in section 3, 4, 6, and 20 of the Act. NBA has been authorized to constitute a fund, that is a National Biodiversity Fund, to pool in the amount that comes from various stakeholders and then send it back to the various villages or rural areas for their own development and for the cause of conservation. Coming to the functions of the National Biodiversity Authority, it has a triple role. It has a regulatory role. It grants approval to accessing biological resources and associated knowledge. It also issues guidelines to regulate the biological resources in our country. It also acts as a facilitative body. It facilitates the formation of biodiversity management committees at the local body level. It also helps the states to prepare or document the people's biodiversity registers at the local body level. And also it helps to facilitate research activities for conserving rare, endangered, and threatened species. The NBA also has a function, an advisory function. It advises the central government and the state government on all aspects pertaining to biodiversity conservation. And also it helps the Ministry of Environment and Forest to notify certain species as normally traded as commodity species, so that these species can be brought outside the purview of the ABS mechanism, so that the common man and traders are not affected. It also helps to notify certain species as threatened species, so that adequate care and safeguard is provided while granting approvals for accessing such species, and also to help them to conserve these species and propagate these species. NBA also helps to notify certain areas as biodiversity heritage sites. It helps to preserve the biodiversity in a particular area outside the protected areas. So with the help of the local bodies, state governments can notify certain areas as biodiversity heritage sites to protect the biodiversity wealth in such areas. Coming to the regulated activities and resources, all biological resources pertaining to plants, animals, microorganisms, and their parts, and the genetic material and their byproducts constitutes the biological resources, and all knowledge pertaining to the biological resources are considered as associated knowledge. The Act specifically exempts human genetic material and value-added products from the purview of the provisions of the Act. So far as the regulated activities are concerned, if any person or any entity wants to access a biological resource for either for commercial utilization or for biological utilization or biosurvey or research purpose, he has to take the approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. And again, if a person or an entity wants to apply for a patent, then again he will have to take an NOC in the form of an agreement with the National Biodiversity Authority. And again, if I want to transfer my research results to another foreign entity, again they will have to take the approval of National Biodiversity Authority. And if I have already accessed a particular biological resource and today I want to sell them off or transfer it to another foreign national or foreign entity, again, I will have to take the approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. So far as the commercial utilization is concerned, any biological resource, if it is used for commercial purpose to produce either drugs, cosmetics, food flavors, extracts, colors, fragrance, or any genetic improvement of crops or livestock, then they fall under the purview of the ABS, that is Access and Benefit Sharing Mechanism. And they will have to contribute a small proportion of their profit to the communities which actually supply these biological resources. Now, who needs to get the approval and how this approval process takes place? So, the Biological Diversity Act has categorized persons, that is individuals, and the entities. You may be an organization or a company or a partnership firm. So, they are categorized into two categories. Category 1 falls under Section 3(2) of the Act. That is any person who is not a citizen of India. So, that is, he is a foreign citizen, or he may be a non-resident Indian. That includes the people of Indian origin or the overseas citizen of India, and any entity or a body corporate or an association or organization which has been registered or incorporated outside India, or if they are registered in India but they have a foreign participation in their share capital or management, then they all fall under the category of Section 3(2). All other persons who do not fall under Section 3(2) fall under Section 7. So they are generally Indian citizens and body corporates or associations or organizations which are registered in India, and they do not have any participation in their share capital or management with any foreign investment. So these people come under Section 7 category. The Act specifically excludes the local peoples, the Waids, the Hakims, the local communities from the purview of the ABS mechanism, and those who are actually practicing indigenous medicine in rural areas, they are also excluded from the purview of the Act. So far as the regulatory functions of NBA are concerned, all those persons or entities falling under category 1, that is Section 3(2), will have to take the prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority if they are going to access any biological resource or associated knowledge occurring in India, either for research purpose or for transfer of research results or for commercial exploitation of the results. Similarly, if I am going to access a biological resource for commercial utilization, again they will have to take the approval from NBA. Similarly, if I want to access a biological resource for biosurvey and bioutilization for commercial utilization, again they will have to take the approval from National Biodiversity Authority. So today, applicants need not come all the way to Chennai to file their applications. There is an online portal available in the official website of NBA. So the applicants sitting in their company or in their homes, they can just apply online, providing the required details. And once all the required details are received by NBA along with the application fees, we will have to sign an agreement. All approvals issued by NBA is in the form of agreement. So far as the forms are concerned, there are different forms in which different categories of research or different categories of access have been categorized. Accordingly, Form 1 has to be used for accessing biological resources or associated knowledge by a Section 3(2) entity, either for commercial purpose or for research. Similarly, Form 2 is used to transfer a research result to a Section 3(2) entity. Again, Form 3 is used for any person who is going to apply for a patent. So we should know that whenever I have to go for a patent, the patent office will not receive your application unless you get an NOC or an agreement signed with the NBA. So those who are interested to get a patent will have to apply in Form C, Form 3 to NBA and sign an agreement with the NBA, after which only the patent office will receive your application. Similarly, Form 4 is used for transfer of access to biological resource. Say today I have access the biological resource by applying in Form 1. Tomorrow I decide that I don't need that resource. I want to sell it to a third party who is again a 3 to entity. Then you will have to apply in Form 4. For traders, they'll have to apply in Form A. And for research community who are going to a foreign country with their biological resource for a non-commercial research purpose, then they will have to apply in Form B. So this is the electronic filing of ABS applications. There is already a user manual available in the NBA portal, along with the video to demonstrate how these applications have to be filed, and the instructions and the mandatory documents you have to provide at the time of application. So the mandatory documents would include, you have to give the details of the applicants or the company, details of the biological resource you are planning to access, the source from where you are planning to access, the quantity of biological resource you are going to access, and so on. Similarly, the areas from where the resources are collected, and then the application fees. So for Form 1 and Form 4, the application fees is about 10,000 rupees. And Form 3, that is for patent, the application fees is about 500. So we try to expedite these applications as early as possible, but there has been delay that has been noticed in the past, primarily because of ignorance from the part of the applicants. They will not be providing all the mandatory documents required by NBA for processing their applications. Similarly, most of them come through legal firms. So the lawyers take their own time to provide their details, required details. Sometimes they suppress some information. So we correspond with them and take their required information. So there is a delay. So whenever you feel that you want application to be processed at the earliest, you are most welcome to apply directly to NBA without any intermediary and get the approval at the earliest. Also, whenever the application is received and scrutinized, we send a model agreement to the applicant, asking them to execute the agreement. So most of the time what happens, even if NBA provides the model agreement, that is an in principle approval to the applicant, there has been delay from the part of the applicant to come back to NBA to sign the agreement. On behalf of the central government, NBA takes all measures to actually oppose intellectual property rights that are issued outside the country. So till date, about 75 such IPRs that have been issued outside the country have been opposed by NBA successfully. This is how an ABS application is processed. Once you apply online, we scrutinize it. Once the preliminary scrutiny is completed, we send it to the concerned state biodiversity board. The biodiversity board, in turn, if required, they will send it to the biodiversity management committee at the local body level. And if there is any objection to the application, they will revert back to the NBA. Accordingly, a decision is taken. If there is no objection from the part of NBA, then the application comes back to NBA with the green signal, and then we scrutinize it as per the provisions of the ABS regulations 2014. And whenever there is some clarification required, we place these applications before a committee to scrutinize these applications and come up with their recommendations. Recommendations are received, then we get the approval of the authority, and then we sign the agreement with the applicant. And once the applicant signs the agreement with NBA, then that constitutes the order or the approval granted by NBA. With that, they can go ahead and access the biological resource for commercial purpose or for research. And once an agreement is signed, NBA takes the initiative to upload it in the CBD website. There is a website called www.absch clearinghouse website is there. So once we upload the document, a certificate is generated that is used by the applicant. So the applicant gets an international recognition for their product. So that is called internationally recognized certificate of compliance. So that is generated instantly by the computer, and then National Biodiversity Authority has been authorized on behalf of the country that is India, to issue IRCC for all applications processed by NBA. Besides the regulatory role, the National Biodiversity Authority also helps in facilitating certain functions. It helps in establishing state biodiversity boards. Today, all the states have state biodiversity boards, and it has also helped in the formation of the UT biodiversity councils, and it has helped in a big way to set up the biodiversity management councils in the local bodies. During the past 1 year alone, 260,000 BMCs have been constituted in various local bodies at the panchayat level, at the block level, and at the district level. NBA also provides handholding support for the functioning of these BMCs. Besides supporting the SBBs and BMCs, NBA also helps in capacity building and training of officials of various line departments. It also helps in the preparation of people's biodiversity registers. So every local body is supposed to document all the biological resources available in the jurisdiction of the local body in the form of a register, which is called as the People's Biodiversity Register. And NBA helps in the preparation of the People's Biodiversity Registers at the local body level. NBA was also facilitated in depositing novel microorganisms discovered by our Indian microbiologists in foreign repositories by issuing a Form C. It has also helped in facilitating issuing of IRCCs, International Recognized Certificate for Compliance, and also has helped in conservation activities utilizing the benefit sharing that has been contributed by various applicants for the cause of conservation. Besides that, we have also been engaged in sharing awareness among various stakeholders involved in biodiversity conservation, biodiversity governance in our country. The third function of NBA is the advisory function. NBA happens to be the main advisor for the central government on all aspects pertaining to biodiversity and biodiversity governance in our country. It also advises the government of India and the state governments to prepare strategic plans for managing the biological resources in our country. It also advises the state governments to notify certain species as threatened species under the provisions of the Act, so that more care and safety is provided to conserve these species. It also advises the governments to notify certain areas as biodiversity heritage sites. As on date, there are about 18 sites across 12 states in the country. It has also helped Government of India to notify a large number of species as normally traded as commodities, which help in the smooth trade as well as consumption by the public. So as on date, there are about 421 species which has been notified as normally traded as commodities. It has also advised the central government to notify certain institutions as national repositories. Today, there are about 16 national repositories. So whenever an applicant comes to NBA to sign an agreement, he is supposed to keep a small voucher specimen in these repositories, so that in future, if we need to do any type of research on that species, NBA has a voucher specimen to depend upon. Now we move to the access and benefit sharing mechanism that is prevalent not only in India but across different parts of the world. ABS is the hallmark of the Biodiversity Act. It was introduced into the Biodiversity Act in 2002, well ahead, much ahead before the Nagoya Protocol, which came into being in 2014, which again emphasized the need for access and benefit sharing on the principles of equity. So it ensures that there is a fair and equitable sharing of benefits that accrue from the biological resources. So it is a big contribution from corporate India, from the research sector, those who are using the biological resources as raw materials, to share a small portion of their profit to the people who are actually involved in the production of these resources or conservation of these resources. If you see, most of these people are from tribal communities, the forest dwelling communities, the rural communities, who are actually living in a very poor situation. So this is an opportunity for every one of us who are using these biological resources to contribute a small portion in the form of benefit sharing through the National Biodiversity Authority or the State Biodiversity Board, to help these people in the cause of conservation. And it also acts as an incentive to these people who supply these biological resources on a sustainable manner to the companies who actually use them as a raw material. So 95% of the ABS, that is benefit sharing, that is shared by the companies or entities or the research sector, is again plowed back to the communities through the BMCs, or if the benefit claimer is known, directly this amount is transferred to the benefit claimer directly. And 2.5% of this amount is taken as an administrative cost by the SBB and by the National Biodiversity Authority. So when a company uses a biological resource, and as on date, if the X factory sale of product is up to 1 crore, he has to share 0.1% of the sale value. So today, if I am having a company and my profit and my X factory sale of product, after deducting all the government taxes, is 1 crore, then I am supposed to pay 10,000 rupees to National Biodiversity Authority. If I am a Section 3(2) entity, or if I am a Section 7 entity, you have to pay 10,000 rupees to the State Biodiversity Board. So 95% of that amount goes to the BMCs or the benefit claimers. So if the X factory sale of product is between 1 crore to 3 crore, you are supposed to give 0.2%, and if it is more than 3 crore, it is up to 5%. Similarly, there is a provision for the traders and manufacturers to pay this benefit sharing on the purchase price of the raw material. So it goes up to 1 to 3% for traders and 3 to 5% for the manufacturers. Similarly, if I want to transfer the research result to a Section 3(2) entity, I'll have to pay between 3 to 5% of the monetary consideration. And in the case of patent, suppose I am going to take a patent, and based on the research result or process or product, if I am myself going to commercially exploit it, then I will have to pay between 0.2 to 1% of the annual gross X factory sale to NBA or SBB. Or if I decide to assign or transfer my patent to a third party, then I'll have to pay 3 to 5% of the fee received in any form to NBA or SBB, and again 2 to 5% of the royalty to NBA that I will be receiving on an annual basis. Similarly, if I want to transfer any access to biological resource or associated knowledge, then I'll have to pay 2 to 5% of the monetary consideration. And there is also a provision for high economic value crops to collect an upfront payment of 5% on the raw material that is applicable for crops like red sanders, sandalwood, and so on. There is also a provision provided in the Act. Besides the monetary consideration, the firms or institutions can also come up with the non-monetary benefits. They can also share a non-monetary in a non-monetary way to help the local communities. For example, a company can set up a factory or an unit in a particular area from where they continuously get these resources, or they can set up a venture capital fund for aiding the cause of benefit claimers, or they can share their research or development results to Indian institutions. So there are more non-monetary ways also to share their benefits. So Biological Diversity Act stipulates that all offences that are committed under the provisions of the Act are cognizable and non-bailable. And if a Section 3(2) entity commits any violation, the Act provides for an imprisonment of 5 years and a fine of up to 10 lakh rupees. And if a 7 entity commits any violation, he can be imprisoned for up to 3 years and a fine of up to 5 lakh rupees. And so far as the National Biodiversity Authority and State Biodiversity Board are concerned, they are statutory entities, and any orders issued by the Government of India or the state government or the National Biodiversity Authority or the State Biodiversity Board is treated as a court order. So if there is a violation on the order issued by the NBA or the SBB, a penalty can be levied of up to 1 lakh rupees. And if there is a subsequent contravention, a penalty of rupees 2 lakh can be imposed by the National Biodiversity Authority or the State Biodiversity Board. And if the contravention continues, then on a per day basis, a penalty or fine of rupees 2 lakh can be imposed till the orders are complied by the applicant. Now coming to the salient features of the National Biodiversity Authority. Since its inception in 2003, we have been able to facilitate the formation of SBBs in all the states, and the union territories have also constituted the UT Biodiversity Councils. Today, there are about 265,725 biodiversity management committees that are fully functional at various local bodies. We have helped in the preparation of people's biodiversity registers. Today, there are about 196,000 PBRs available in all the states. NVA has also opposed 75 cases of IPRs in different parts of the world. It has also notified the guidelines so that there is no subjectiveness in imposing the benefit sharing. So everyone knows what is the benefit sharing that they have to share when they are accessing a biological resource. It has also notified 421 species as normally traded as commodities under Section 40 of the Act. We have also launched an online portal for e-filing of ABS applications. Today, there are 18 sites that have been notified as biodiversity heritage sites. There is a lot of potential to include more areas as biodiversity heritage sites in other parts of the country. There are about 159 plants and 175 species that has been notified as threatened species under Section 39 of the Act. 16 institutions have been designated as repositories under the provisions of the Act. Similarly, we have issued guidelines for collaborative research projects. Research is an important sector so far as Biological Diversity Act is concerned. We have been trying to help the research sector, and in this regard, we have issued guidelines. Similarly, guidelines for processing of ABS applications have been issued. NBA till date has executed agreements of with more than 1,500 applicants, and today, out of the 1,600 IRCCs issued globally, 1,300 has been issued by India alone. And in the last 1 year alone, we have issued close to 600 IRCCs. So it's a big achievement. More than 80% of the IRCCs issued globally are from India. So India has taken a lead and setting an example on how benefit sharing can take place with the local communities. And NBA has gone one step ahead to teach the other countries on our experiences in ABS, and accordingly has published our ABS procedures in all the 6 UN languages, which is available in the UN CBD website. In order to encourage biodiversity conservation at the local body level, we have introduced India Biodiversity Awards in partnership with the UNDP and the Government of India. And under 4 categories, we are giving awards every 2 years. So this year we should have given the award, but because of the COVID crisis, this has been postponed to next year. So there are 4 categories. One is the conservation of wild and domestic species, sustainable use of biological resources, replicable mechanisms of ABS, and best biodiversity management committees. So each BMC is given awards, a cash prize, and a honor to encourage the exemplary efforts of individuals and institutions in biodiversity conservation in our country. Now, before I conclude my presentation, I would also like to address some of the frequently asked questions, because I have been receiving a lot of questions both on email and on WhatsApp to cover some of the myths that are prevailing amongst various stakeholders. So one is the BD Act prevents Indian companies from growing. There is a general tendency to think that when I buy a share or when I list my company in a stock exchange, I move from a Section 7 company to a Section 3(2) company. So it is totally a myth. In fact, the reality is when a Section 7 company moves to a Section 3(2) company, it benefits them. The ABS obligations remain the same. The approval process remains the same. In fact, Section 3(2) is an enabling clause that helps in single window clearance for all the Section 3(2) entities. So BD Act does not come in the way of the growth of the company. Similarly, there is a myth that BD Act affects exports. No, BD Act in fact facilitates exports. In fact, the IRCC, which is issued by NBA, helps the companies to promote their products outside. So the products can be taken to foreign countries, and then they can tell them that it is IRCC compliant, so they are paying the benefit sharing for whatever products that are being sold outside. So in fact, it gives more visibility for the products of these companies. So it directly and indirectly promotes exports as well. The other myth is that BD Act dips the profit of companies. No, the amount specified in the Act is very, very small. It is only 0.1 to 0.5%. And this amount again goes back to the communities which are helping in the cause of conservation. And it is only an incentive to these communities to share the small profit from the company side. Again, there is a myth that there is a double payment to farmers and tribals. The companies feel that I'm already paying the farmers or the tribal cooperative societies while procuring my raw material, but why I should pay again ABS? So the farmers or the tribals don't know the actual value of the biological resource which is actually supplied to the companies. When the companies use this resource, the value of these resources go multiple fold. So it is only a small portion of their profit, 0.1 to 0.5%. You are going to give back to these communities as a small incentive for the hard work they are doing to promote sustainable utilization of these biological resources. Again, there is a myth that all food crops are to be exempted as NTAC, and these are not exempted. Till date, I would like to inform you that 421 species have been exempted under ABS provisions, and almost all the crops that are being consumed by humans are exempted under the provisions of the Act. And there is another myth that value-added products are exempted, but companies are compelled to pay ABS. Value-added products are products which are ready for consumption. When a product is actually used to prepare another product, then it becomes part of the production chain, and then it becomes a raw material. So definitely they will have to pay ABS for any product which is used as a raw material. So I would like to just clarify on this myth on NTSA and VAP, value-added product. Suppose in the case of cardamom, if I buy a cardamom from the farmer and then I again sell it to a trader, and the wholesale trader sends it to the retail shop, this entire chain is totally exempted under the provisions of the Act because it is a NTAC. There is no need to pay ABS on this front. But suppose a company procures this cardamom from the farmer or a trader and then starts extracting oil or some other value added product, and then that is sold in the market, the value added product, the person who is actually selling the product need not pay ABS, but the company which is actually adding value to the cardamom will have to pay ABS depending on the status of the company, either to the NBA or to the State Biodiversity Board. Now again, another myth is that the conventional breeding is exempted, but companies are compelled to pay ABS. By conventional breeding, we mean that the breeding that is actually taking place in rural areas by the farmers themselves. Any company which is using conventional breeding techniques with a commercial intent, they will have to pay benefit sharing to NBA or the SBB. Similarly, non-monetary ABS should be allowed. Yes, there is a provision for non-monetary ABS that is provided in the Act. Again, there is a request for payment on purchase price. Again, that option is already available in the Act. The companies, if they want, they can pay the amount based on the purchase price of the raw material. Again, there is a complaint that there are delays in the processing of applications. After we have taken charge, we have addressed this issue. Today, there is no delay. If there is any delay, you can directly contact the Secretary NBA. I also projected my number and WhatsApp number on the screen. You can directly contact me anytime. Similarly, the SBBs cannot levy ABS. That is a grievance of many of the companies. This is a wrong, it is a myth. SBBs are authorized to regulate the biological resources and actually collect the ABS, determine the ABS. This has been reaffirmed in the Divya Farmers case by the Honorable High Court of Uttarakhand in WPC 3437 by 2016. And then there is a myth that BD Act affects research in India. It's totally wrong. Any Indian citizen or any Indian institution need not take any approval from the NBA or the SBB for conducting any research. Also, any collaborative research by an Indian institution with a foreign institution, which is approved by a government department, are also exempted from any type of approval. So this is my last slide. This is the challenges and way forward. So the need of the hour is to create an awareness to the stakeholders and public at large. At present, only the companies who are actually using these biological resources are fully aware about the act. Though we have published our ABS procedures even in the UN website, many countries are actually replicating our model in different countries, and there is compliance is increasing in other countries as well. But still, we have to go a long way forward. And in this regard, we at NBA are providing a lot of training to the state biodiversity boards and the biodiversity management committees, as also to the officials of various line departments who are actually involved in the conservation of biological resources, like the forest department, agriculture department, horticulture department, fisheries, livestock department, and so on. Similarly, there are sector-specific issues in interpretation of the issues of the Act. So NBA is planning to release a sector-specific document to clear all ambiguities pertaining to interpretation of the provisions by different sectors. We are also seeking cooperation with our other countries on user country measures and also the IRCC, and also help our companies to promote their exports abroad, particularly those companies who are actually ABS compliant. Similarly, we are in touch with various other countries where foreign repositories are functioning to ensure that Indian microbiologists do not have any problems while depositing their culture collections outside India. The major challenge at present is the monitoring and tracking of utilization of biological resources and compliance. NBA is closely monitoring and tracking various stakeholders who are using these resources. We are going to install a software very soon, which will closely ensure that whoever is using our biological resources within India and also outside India will be known to NBA as well as the SBBs. The issues faced by the stakeholders are being examined by the National Biodiversity Authority, and the genuine problems are going to be addressed very soon by way of certain amendments that are being proposed to the existing legal framework. I stop here. I thank all the participants for their patience, and I now open this session for an interaction. Thank you.